What a catch. Now, is he going to get the opportunity to make that play on a Saturday night? Probably not. But we know he can. And I was like,
oh, dang it. I just was playing because I love the game. Like, and it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Blow sticks in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
We mentioned last week that, Trenton had already started practice, 6 months ago.
Yeah, January.
Yeah. And I had. And so I was just patiently waiting my turn. And we got that chance this week. We are in our first week of two-a-days. Dave Campbell's is going crazy, posting 17 times a day with any and every Midnight Madness and, first practice picture. And I'm absolutely eating it up. But had a teachable moment, had a learning moment today. We kind of touched on this a little bit a couple weeks ago, but I had a moment today where I explained a drill. And I thought I explained it. I get talking fast, kind of like when TK breaks down a play. That's how I am in drills. I get to talking fast. Hey, let's be efficient with our time. Boom, boom, boom. And I explained a drill. And I really thought that I was very straightforward. I've said these words before. These kids will understand it. And I said, everybody got it? Nobody's made a sound. Pretty typical for teenagers. And does anybody not got it? And 6 hands went up. And I just tried. I said, you know what? That's my fault. That's my fault. And I had to slow down. Had to use smaller words. And it was a little embarrassing because on the one hand, you want to be like, hey, what in the Sam Hill do you mean? You don't know what it means. Cut the cushion to 2.5, break down. He makes a move. You engage. I don't understand what's so difficult about that. And then I went, oh, this kid started playing football last year. Yep. He hadn't been around the game for 30 years. So I had to talk a little bit slower, had to teach them that 2.5 is a reference to a distance in yards and what it meant to engage. But the Rebels are back on the practice field. So, I love that. More and more of these learning moments are coming.
Yeah, I think to make a teaching point, out of that teaching point, it took me probably 5 or 6 years to actually pay attention to how I speak, and a lot of it too, honestly, Travis, is with the podcast. I hate hearing myself talk. When you're listening to yourself talk, you start noticing, little things that you do. And then even whenever I did that interview at I was just drawing ladies. I don't have this in my head.
It's a wand. It's a football wand.
Here we go. But even when I was at Vanderbilt and we had to do the mock interviews where the coach was in there and all of that stuff, they give you the feedback of okay, what is your tick word? What is the repeat word you use? And I do feel like most coaches, what they do is they say in some form or fashion, does that make sense? Okay, good, here we go. And you never.
It's not really a question.
Yeah, you're never actually, it's rhetorical. You're never actually asking the kid, does it make sense? I've had to do a really good job of pausing. Hey, does this make sense to everybody? And the amount of times that I'll say that, initially, it's funny because the kids will actually say nothing because they're expecting you to continue going. And I'll just sit there in silence, kind of look around. No, guys, that was an actual question.
It was a real life question.
Oh, and either they're like, oh, yeah, no, we get it. Or it's like, no, not really. And the amount of information that I've spit out before after kind of pausing and then asking if they get it, and the amount of times they've said no, I'm like, whoa, got it. I'm a terrible teacher. Let's redo that one again. So a little tidbit there for young coaches, what you're saying, never make assumptions, because you can always assume they don't know any football at all. And when you ask them if it makes sense, do it twice. Does it make sense? No. Does it make sense?
But
and most of the time, they'll probably say no.
At least one person will.
Yep, 100%.
But you gotta love the Coachspeak is such a real thing, and most of the time people hear that they think it's from a media reference, and obviously high school coaches, our media Coachspeak isn't near as often or charted or whatever as college and NFL coaches. But there's also another Coachspeak, which is they're like fillers, but they're full sentences, they're repeated sentences, and there are things that like that's when the team starts to take on like the personality of the coach. You know, I don't want to throw any names out there, but and I know you know exactly what I'm talking about before I even say it. But the coaches that have like that go-to filler, right? That go-to coach speak. Hey, here we go, right here.
Yep.
and every drill, every period, every practice, at some point, whatever.
Dude, he is so, he was so bad. He was so bad at it.
Oh my gosh! Hey, here we go, right here. But every there is one. Everybody's got one.
Here we go, right here.
Everybody's got one, and you're gonna hear it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And I will be honest that our conversations have made me aware of that, almost to a level of discomfort. But I personally love to hear them because I think they're a reflection of the coach's personality. And when the kids start to like repeat them or anticipate when they're coming and say them as the coach does it, to me, I think that's a parallel to when the team really starts to take on the coach's personality. The team really starts to come together. And it becomes a really cool moment. You know, we have one play, we have like a red zone play that I've taken from Coach Prowls, and he does it a little bit different. I do it to how I kind of remembered it. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the 22-year-old version of me that has tried to get everyone in the world to run this play remembered exactly how Coach wanted it. But we have our version, and it's worked everywhere I've been. But our kids now, I call that play, like the inflection in my voice, the pace in which I speak, I call that play completely different than how I call every other play. And they know it. They know when it's coming in practice. They know, and it, you know, it becomes like a point of excitement and anticipation and things like that. So while Coachspeak from a media standpoint can be super boring, from a coaching standpoint, it can be hilarious if you're sitting in meetings and the lights are off and you never know when that filler is going to be used. But it's also a great opportunity for those personalities of the team and the coach to really start to, you know, come together and adopt each other's little tics and quirks. And like I said, I think that's a great parallel for like when a team's really starting to take off and take that next step.
Dude, if you're a coach, you need to be really aware of how you speak too, because it makes me think. We had a coach at Vanderbilt. He had one of those things, right? And it got so bad where I found out that the majority of the guys, in particular the offensive linemen, almost every day, they weren't actually writing down notes. Like they were on, you know, I mean, they were mature enough to where like if it was important, they would write down notes. But they were actually tallying how many times he said that phrase in a meeting. They would do it every single day. And like, it's funny, but I ended up kind of, you know, coming back to the kids like, hey, I get it, but that's also your attention is now on him saying that and not in the actual details and information which he's trying to give you. So like on a serious note, it was like, oh my God, like, and it's not his fault. Like the kids should also be able to just lock it in, take the vernacular that he's trying to give, which is actually meaningful and not the tick that he kept saying. But at the same time, like I challenge every young coach, like, hey, record yourself on an install and then play it back. That's the best way to really get an idea of how you speak. You're probably going to A, hate yourself or hate hearing yourself talk, and then B, you'll get a really good idea of how you look when you're in front of kids on the board talking or whatever maybe.
100%. COVID really started that for me when, you know, we're trying to install this, you know, this new version of the offense, my version of the offense. And we can't do anything face to face. So it's video after video, it's screencastify, it's shared screen. But I also wanted to incorporate signals and, you know, hand placement and things of that nature. And recording that, the first one I ever recorded, watching it back before I posted it and being like, oh my gosh, didn't enunciate probably 35% of the words. So it's just mumbled jargon, but B, way too many fillers. And I catch myself now that, you know, having conversations like this, you catch yourself when you're trying to anticipate and really get your point across, but you're taking too long and you're afraid of the silence or the pause. Like that matters. That if you learn how to use that skill, it'll grab a kid's attention instead of worrying so much about the fact that it's silent. We're going to lose their attention. No, if it's a constant white noise of talking, they'll drown it out. Just like they're, they have a sound machine next to their bed, like my toddlers. What was the saying?
Which one? From Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
And you can see it. Oh my gosh, because it's so simple, but you can see it from an O-line standpoint. And all of a sudden, that stunt lands right in your lap. And all of a sudden, he squeezes, crosses your face.
Yep, exactly. I mean, it was everything. It was everything from like scheme to recruiting type of stuff. And all
of a sudden, we get in the portal and we got your replacement right here.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, and the problem is like, especially if it's like not an I or okay or if it's more than one word, like they're not good in general, but if it's more than one word, it can get to the point where like
that's your personality.
All I hear is that one saying I can't even concentrate on the other stuff he's saying. So
yeah, becomes you become the all of a sudden coach. You know?
Yeah.
You become the hey, here we go right here.
Here we go right here.
All right. Sorry. Talking about coaching and being mindful of dialogue and things of that nature. Hard Knocks. It's back. The real Hard Knocks, the OG Hard Knocks. We talked a little bit about Hard Knocks off season. HBO or Max or whatever it's called is completely monopolized off the field NFL, and I absolutely love it. I'm here for it. But episode 1, the Chicago Bears. How do you pronounce his name? The head coach.
Eberflus.
I
thought it was Eberflus. But what's his name said like Eberflus.
Eberflus. So played for Nick Saban at Toledo. Saban, and hey, spoiler alerts, not too many, but a couple. Saban, retired Saban. Miss Terry she's letting him do his national tour of visiting camps. He stops by Chicago to see his former player, and they sit down and talk about quarterbacks. And when I heard that conversation, all I could think about was us briefly talking about quarterbacks and that relationship, that dynamic, but also immediately wanting to know exactly what you thought of everything that he said. Because Saban they're talking about Caleb Williams, obviously, his development, and Saban has a line. He says, I have a theory on why so many NFL quarterbacks fail. And it's because they have these unrealistic, overwhelming expectations. And though trying to meet those expectations outweighs their development. Mm-hmm. And so that's part 1. And part 2 was when he mentions how his relationship with his quarterbacks always was. And he was very mindful of that. And at one point he says, I never openly criticized my starting quarterback in front of the rest of the team. And I have. And I feel like I'm extremely mindful of quarterbacks and the dynamic and the relationship, the character, the personality, I guess, that you really want in that position. And I've absolutely criticized my quarterback in front of the rest of the team. But those 2 points, are you totally on board, kind of on board, completely disagree? Like I said, as soon as I heard it, I was like, I can't wait to ask DK about this.
Yeah. I mean, the first part of it with the expectations, I mean, that's real because that's simply what the world's gone to, which is no patience at all. Said it before, transaction over transformation. And so how fast can you win? And so that's a combination of, to me, even if a coach wants to develop a kid, the higher the level you are, the more the demand of winning it becomes. And so as much as you want to develop a kid, and you also have to win. And so you're trying to microwave the process of success for a quarterback when we all know in reality you can't microwave success. And so it ends up being a disaster at the end of the day and doesn't produce a product that is built for longevity. And so you're missing those steps along the way. but I also feel like that is just kind of how the world's become. So it's kind of a lose-lose in a sense, you know. I mean, it's just unless you have the chance to, you know, your front office believes in you and they're going to give you 3 years, and it's a perfect combination of you got the new job, you got the new quarterback, we're going to give you 3 years to do it. It just doesn't happen a lot anymore, so that's kind of tough. And yeah, so the thing with the head coach, I'm really interested in that because that is it's such a how you manage the relationship between the offensive coordinator and or quarterback coach and the head coach conjoining with the quarterback is very, very important. And to me, out of every position there is, obviously I'm biased, but out of every position there is, the process and vernacular that you use as a quarterback coach coordinator to your quarterbacks is very, very, very important. To me, when Nick Saban sat there and said that he always stood behind his quarterback because he wanted to hear the quarterback side of the story and the quarterback side of the process, to me, that was more of what is his process like? What's his processing like? So I can help where I can help with the basic stuff that's not going to interrupt the actual maybe scheme or the process that the quarterback coach has in play. More so, I took that as like, I just heard what your quarterback said, coach. Okay. You need to fix your process with him. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I took that more of like, let me hear how he's processing things. That way he can go back into the building and Nick Saban can now address his coach. Hey, just so you're aware, on that one play, he's supposed to read the post safety, and he said that he didn't see it spin, and he ended up not working the concept side. So we're missing something there. Maybe work on your process. Where I see issues arise, I think that's great. Where I see issues arise is when you have a heavily involved offensive head coach that feels his need to put his input into the quarterback, where he may, I'm not going to say he doesn't know what he's talking about, but he doesn't know where you as a quarterback coach are in the process, in the journey with that quarterback. And so he can very, very easily screw some stuff up with that kid in the process of which he's in if that coach is not smart and he's not just, you know, if he's jumping in there and just saying, oh yeah, you should have done this, should have done that, should have done that. Like, you don't know what's his preset process. Because if you as a head coach, you don't know that, and you don't know what your quarterback coach is telling him to do, you're jumping into a lane where you actually don't know what you're talking about. So to me, that's where I see that as more of like, jump in where you know this is a blatant mistake. I can help this. It's not going to mess with the process. I think that's great. And so when you start digging into the weeds a little bit too deep, and you're talking about maybe things where you and the coordinator haven't even discussed yet, so you're for sure not on the same page. I think that's where you start having some issues, because now your quarterback is going to look at you and be like, "Well, head coach said this. He's head coach, and you do that." You're like, "Well, I mean, dude, we haven't even talked yet. Like, let me talk to him first." And so now you start to have that disconnect, and so which I think every offensive head coach is going to want to be involved. That's just, it's an instinct for them. And I think that's going to always be an issue. And it's because it's a pride thing, especially if that guy was a quarterback guy. If your head coach was a quarterback guy, to me, that's where the communication between him and the coach, A, has to be at an all-time high, and B, the trust has to be completely there. Like, hey, you hired me for a reason. Let me coach him.
100%. I think that a lot of times there's pieces to a program and a staff and things that get, you know, I've gotten to the point where I hate the word culture, because I think it's overused and it's watered down, and it's so far removed. But things like that is where I feel like the outside world and worried about the presentation and worried about the clinics and worried about the Coachspeak has infiltrated the quote unquote building to a negative. But the piece that I think will always maintain is that understanding of vertical and horizontal alignment within a staff down through the team. And that's one of the things that I think, being around certain coaches, hearing how they interact and hearing how they work, I think that that's where I can start to see the difference the longer I do this. when you have situations like that, it create when your discourse among coaches is happening through or in the vicinity of players, you're going to have a huge problem. There's a difference in disagreeing and disagreeing to detriment, right? The offensive coordinator, who's probably the quarterback's coach, and the head coach can disagree, but they need to iron that out before either one of them communicates with a player.
Right.
Continuing that, the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator can disagree, but they need to iron that out before they get around a player. Because if my expectation is one thing as a play caller, and your expectation doesn't perfectly align with that as a position coach, and we have moments that get lost in translation, it's not going to hurt me. It's going to hurt my quarterback, right? Because he's the one that's going to get smoked. And that's the piece. When you start talking about, okay, this is all like high level stuff. How do you apply it to the high school like level of the game? When you look at a school like us and we've got 6 coaches, I don't want, my guys have a ton, our staff has a ton of things that we have to do outside of just coaching ball, right? Mm-hmm. Which is part of the job. We it's not like a surprise. Nobody's throwing extra things on us. We knew all these things when we signed up. But because of that, I try and be mindful of their time. I don't want to meet every day. I don't want to hold you here for 20, 30, 45 minutes to an hour extra so we can go through these things. But that means that we've got to have informal settings for these conversations, and the conversations still have to exist. One of the things that you get to see on Hard Knocks, no matter what season it is how much they meet, what they talk about, and the depth of which they talk about it. And it's so valuable because, yes, I would love to be able to take my practice script and sit down with my staff and say, okay, when we go to this period, what are you doing? What are you saying? How are you implying? How are you teaching our run game? How are you teaching our pass game, et cetera, et cetera? I would love the ability to do that. But the fact of the matter is that I got coaches that got to mow our practice field. I got coaches that got to mow our game field. I got to do laundry. I got coaches that got to fix equipment, And some of those things we can get done while we might be meeting, but some of them we can't. We got to be up and out and on machinery and doing all these things. So finding ways to continue that dialogue, finding ways to have those conversations without it being in a, hey, staff meeting, 5 minutes type situation, are absolutely vital. I know there have been situations in my past as a position coach and then also as a play caller where I've seen those disconnects and I've seen that miscommunication in the sense that we're saying something different. And as a position coach, I watched it be handled one way. And as a play caller, I consciously chose to handle it a different way. I understand that for a brief moment in time, I may feel like my legs are being cut out from under me because that guy's not saying what I want him to say. But neither one of us is losing the trust, respect, or faith of the players by handling it unnecessarily in front of them. We don't need an audience. On the flip side of that, I've been on the receiving end and had to worry about not only did I lose the trust of the play caller that I work with, but did I lose the trust of my players because now this seed of doubt may have been planted that I don't know what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, if your resume is strong and your behavior is stronger, you're not going to lose the trust of your players in an isolated incident like that. But to even have that seed of doubt planted, that's a very avoidable issue. And so that vertical alignment is got to be integral through your staff down through your locker room, 100%.
Well, yeah, I think you got to be mindful. Like if you're a coordinator and a head coach, those two positions specifically, you need to be very mindful of how you're empowering your coaches. And so, for example, like we installed a play today to where essentially it's 3x1, FIB into the boundary, and it's like a hitch and go, and we're throwing the hitch and go no matter what, even if it's back shoulder. But if we get a 2-out structure and the safety ends up taking the hitch and go, well, then we have a seam read coming from the boundary that should be middle field open. So now he's getting it into the boundary. So there's your answer. right? That being said,
Did you guys time out real quick? Did you see how like he started and he was like, "All right, I'm going to keep this pretty elementary," and then he just kept talking and he kept using more detail and talking faster. If I get through it fast enough, nobody will notice and just.
I could not just dive into the concept. Anyways, and so I'm explaining the play in the the play as a whole, and then I get a couple of questions from receivers or tight ends, and there's questions which like I can very very easily answer, right? But like I got a question, hey coach, on the hitch and go, how do you want me to turn? What's my split here? And to me, yes, I could have given the answer, but to me, my receiver coach is standing right there, and it's like, hey, baby, that's his masterpiece. That's what he does. He knows the details. That's where he's way better than me. Go ask him. And like, it's a small thing, but like, yeah, I could have answered that because I know the answer to those questions. But to me, that's how you empower your coaches. Because if not, I think it's very easy for a coordinator and a head coach to, and they don't mean to, but when they're out there, they love to give all those answers. And what they're like basically subconsciously doing is they're now when they're around trying to give all these answers, and their position coaches start to feel some type of way. Not like, it's just, and they're not trying to take it personal, but it's more of like, hey man, these are my kids, let me coach them. I'm not mad that you're answering all the questions, but I want them to trust me though too. Because what you naturally start doing, I feel like, is those kids will start thinking, well, he knows a lot more than what my own position coach does. And where that may be true, maybe not, I don't know. You just don't want that perception. And so you want to try to empower those guys as much as you can. And hey, that's him. That's your position. I can tell you, here's the bowl, but he's got to give you those ingredients, period.
Yeah, that's huge. I catch myself. I need to be more conscious of that in those situations because of our limited ability to meet and really dive into those things. And then just trust in the fact that if your coaches don't know, they'll ask. And if they hesitate and think that maybe they don't understand it exactly how you want it to be taught, that they'll, because you empowered them, they'll respond accordingly and trust you to give them great information. The second part I want to kind of touch on, circle back. I know we went over it. The not criticizing quarterbacks in front of the rest of the team. Now, listen, first of all, Nick Saban, defensive coach.
What do you do?
Well, I mean, I've told what I do. I walk up to my quarterback sometimes and I go, hey, today I'm going to jump your butt and I'm going to yell at you for something you probably don't do. And the only reason I'm doing it is because I need everybody else to respond the correct way by seeing you respond the correct way. So I clearly am not in that category. But I've also, I would like to say that I do both. I've also made it a point to where as a coordinator, as a quarterback coach, as a head coach, I've made a conscious decision that for my quarterback to get just absolutely eaten alive in front of his team, for me to criticize him, for me to jump down his throat, it's got to be bad. It's not one play. It's a series, right? It's 3, 4, 5. We're stringing them together. He's not focused, etc. And the biggest reason is I've accepted the fact that a high school quarterback, to a certain extent, he's probably going to make a few more minuscule errors in practice than everybody else because he's got a few more things to worry about and take care of when it comes to every play that's run, preparing his teammates to execute, and making sure the ball gets distributed where it needs to be distributed to. So I really feel like I've tried to live in the majority of the time in the camp that Saban described, but I try and be very conscious of time and place because I'm a firm believer. I was listening to, I can't remember who it was. They were talking about an NFL quarterback and his development and the relationship with the coach, and it was like, I'm going to yell at you today because I need to yell at him. But I got to yell at you first so they know that you're not untouchable and I don't play favorites from an emotional standpoint and a mistake standpoint. So I'm going to yell at you so I can set up my opportunity to go yell at him. And to me, that's coaches playing chess. Some people may look at that and think that it's like mind games. You're messing with kids. You're messing with players. But when you do it constructively, you're just playing chess, because that kid has to know you're proactively making sure he's aware this isn't personal.
Right.
And I'm doing this because I love you and I want the team to be great and I want you to be great in your role within the team. And you can't just say those things to a teenager. You can't just be like, hey, man, I love you and I want you to be great, and then yell at him for 5 minutes to fix it. Because he's only going to hear that yelling. He's going to completely forget the first two things you said. But if you then Saban said this, I feel like quarterbacks are if you show them as opposed to tell them. If I tell a kid I love him and that this isn't personal and that everybody is on a relationship, even playing field, if I tell him that, he might remember it. If I show him that, he'll never forget it. On a lighter note of the Hard Knocks episode, everybody's new favorite Canadian offensive lineman. What's his name? Theo Benedette. First off, spoiler alert, we hate this for his injury, but Caleb Williams goes up and absolutely bombs the rookie show, quote unquote rookie show. Can't do a true rookie show anymore. So what they do is they kind of do a couple a day. Absolutely goes up there and bombs trying to sing Ordinary People by John Legend. But he did have to tell everybody. I love the fact that the guy that got 25.5 guaranteed bombed, and the guy that got 20K or 25.5 signing bonus, and the guy that got 20K absolutely crushed it.
That's so
cool. To see a Canadian offensive lineman in a United States bald eagle Speedo singing "Proud to be an American" with one of his teammates clashing the cymbals, truly is one of the it's got to be on the Mount Rushmore of Hard Knocks rookie show performances. Do you have a favorite from any of those? Do you remember any of those? You're not like me where like pop culture moments like that stick in your head, but do you have any from past seasons?
I'm trying to. I think there was one a long time ago with the Ravens. I can't remember what it was. Like back whenever Ray Lewis was playing, that was really good. But off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I know that you got one.
So the original Hard Knocks.
You're saying that your favorite one is this one.
No. I'm saying it's top 3, maybe top 4. But the original Hard Knocks with the Ravens, right after they won the Super Bowl, Ray Lewis, Shannon Sharp, Tony Saragusa, R.I.P.
Yep.
Todd Heap. I was talking to one of my buddies because they were like, "That's crazy. They make them say their signing bonus." I was like, "Dude, they've been doing that for years." I said the problem is that in 2001 or whatever, when they did the first Hard Knocks, Todd Heap's signing bonus was like $3 million, and he was a first round draft pick, not 25 and a half.
Yeah.
But the you embarrassed me on national television. I want my restitution. Might be the greatest clip. Making fun. I mean, you're making fun. You're basically a 7th round unnamed like nobody rookie, and you're clowning Ray Lewis and Shannon Sharp. Like respect, but also crushed the impersonation.
Yeah.
So that to me, the original Hard Knocks set the rookie show bar way too high because no one will ever surpass it.
No, that was so good.
But what about? I mean, I know when I was at Tarleton, we had tried to have a little bit of fun like that. But were there any memorable ones from your 4 years? Well, I don't know why you're looking at me like that.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You don't remember?
No, I do. I was trying to, pull this out of you.
I feel like that was like the scene of Zoolander. But why male models? Are you serious? Just told you a moment ago.
You wanna elaborate or no? Are you good?
I mean, I'll tell a story. Yeah, it's fine. So basically, I'm at Tarleton. We're at Tarleton, and I get the good job of having to be the doorsman of skit night, and it was freshmen, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so they all had to do skits, and it was my job to, basically, hey, what skit are you doing? Sounds good. You're up in 5. Lock it in. Get ready. Don't be an idiot. So we have a bunch of skits go. They're all really good. Some lame. Doesn't matter. Whatever. Co-Wessel's out there. I asked Co what he's gonna do. I'm gonna sing a song, and we all knew he could sing. I was like, shocker. It's good.
Shocker.
Should have asked him what he was singing. Okay, I didn't do that at all. Lo and behold, Coco's out there. I'm expecting Doors Straight or something. Randy Rogers, Still You Way, whatever. He's really good at that stuff at the time. Nope. He had a full out song, just bashing every coach on staff, including the head coach, and making fun of everybody. And I'm sitting there at the doorway. All the coaches are at the top row, and I'm hearing the lyrics, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look up, and the head coach is just feet red, just staring at me at the door. And I was like, I'm so fired. I am so fired. And I was like, I don't know. Should I stop him? I don't know what to do. And the players were loving it because he was spot on with everything he was saying. And every coach up there was just arms crossed, just livid. They were going to eviscerate me. And I was like, dude, I'm so fired. Yeah, that was skit night for me.
And that's the thing is like when you look at like whether it's the freshman skits, the rookie show, like those are fun when you can't be afraid to be made fun of. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. I imagine Co-Wetzel, Tarleton State football Co-Wetzel may have taken it a little far, but your ability, to me, that's a great opportunity as a head coach to be like, laugh it off and then pull him in his office and be like, hey, how about you never do that again? And let's try and be a better teammate and a better, just overall member of the program. But if you just freak out and like, now you've created this wall because obviously the players think it's hilarious. And, what does my man J. Cole say? Every joke starts with a nugget of truth, right? So like if you can't laugh at yourself, as long as it's not crossing any like inappropriate lines, like that's a great relationship opportunity to build and move forward and grow. I will say mine, when I was at Baylor, it was always you freshmen had to sing. Like there was no like creativity. We didn't do skits. Freshmen have to sing. And you immediately knew within 10 seconds whether or not you had been accepted, your performance had been accepted by the upperclassmen. And if you hesitated or if you look nervous or you sound nervous, you're probably going to get booed off the chair that you had to stand on. But if you go up there and like you're fully committed to the song, you pull out like a track from Usher's 8701 and like you're fully committed to the R&B bit, like they're going to sing with you, which means you don't have to perform as long and you get to exit stage right quicker. Don't do what Caleb Williams did, which I've seen way too many times. Don't pick a song you don't know the words to. Like, right. Don't stand up on the chair. You know the first 4 words, and you're just hoping and praying everybody jumps in with you. And then it just goes awkwardly silent. Because that's just horrible for everybody. But then also, don't go up there and be like one of my teammates and start singing the Malcolm Kelly freestyle when we have OU in November. Like, is it an amazing performance by Malcolm Kelly after the Big 12 championship? Absolutely. But you know what? Malcolm Kelly didn't go to Baylor, so I don't really understand what your goal is here. And you get booed off the chair at lunch. Coming back to our programs, I do want to...
I asked you a question. You hear me?
Oh, no. What'd you say? What did I sing?
A lot of movies.
What did I sing?
No, a lot of movies in my head tonight. I felt like I felt like the guy on Hangover. How would I? Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, I literally didn't hear what you said.
Okay,
I'd like to make a test.
Yeah, no, what did you sing?
So I'm gonna be honest, full transparency. I never had to sing.
Because you're a walk-on.
No, please. Are you kidding me? Some of the best performances come from walk-ons, just like some of the best performances come from undrafted free agents. I joined the team my freshman year. I joined the team after training camp was over. So I wasn't a freshman. I didn't have to perform. And then when I went to training camp the next year, I had been in the program for a year, so I was not a freshman. And like I'd already been smoked across the middle by Jordan Lake, and I'd already been folded up on scout team enough and busted lips and separated shoulders and, yelled at by Coach Kyle. I'd done all those things for 8, 9, 10, 11 months, whatever it was, to where they're like, oh, he's not a freshman. He's part of this team. So I had that sweet spot of like, I've never admitted that. And, some people may judge me for it, but I thought I was going to take it to my grave. Appreciate you calling me out. Thank you.
Well, no, I feel like you earned your stripes there. That's good.
I really just snuck under the radar. Oh, you guys got to see. But that also meant that like whenever people got up there, I was not a front runner. I'm not going to be super judgmental. I'm going to lean over to my friend and I'm going to be like, can you believe he chose to do that? Or I'm going to say, I'm going to support you, but like, I'm not going to overly boo. I don't have that right. I didn't earn that right. I didn't pay my dues by standing in the chair. You got to stay in your lane. You got to understand what your role is within those situations. And I feel like that's where a lot of issues come up, is because people don't understand their role within situations.
That's right.
Last thing before we, look to wrap this up, I'm sure you got 19,000 plays to script tonight. I do want to brag on our kids. I want to brag on the Rebels a little bit. We don't get into the nitty gritty too much about program specifics. A lot of times we're talking about kind of generalities, but I do want to point this out today. Little scheduling error on my part. For those of you that don't know, in service at the beginning of school for teachers okay, dude. Yeah, because you don't have to go anymore.
Dude, I've been going this past week and hate it.
And I, as the schedule maker, I did a poor job of understanding time, and we had a little bit of a crossover to where I got 37, 40 kids in our field house unattended. These are the same kids that we've been fighting tooth and nail to get to practice on time for a multitude of different situations, right? And so I was already frustrated. We've had a couple kids late each day, which they're in high school, but it's still frustrating. That doesn't change. So I'm freaking out because I got all these kids in our field house unattended. There's food, there's, weights, there's a speaker, there's footballs. What am I going to come back to? How many holes in the wall? How many broken lights? All these things. So I shot a text to some of our leaders and said, hey, just get dressed, be in the locker room. Laundry's done. As soon as we get there, we'll get rolling. Well, apparently they didn't know, just like I didn't know, how long it was going to take. And we had a big moment. We've been talking about discipline and accountability and that word I hate, culture. And, what does that look like for us this year? And they didn't know when I was going to be back, and they didn't want to have to sit around and wait, and they were ready to get to work. So an older kid went to the whiteboard, wrote down what he, to the best of his memory, thought the workout was supposed to be that day. They got up, they went to the weight room, they hit the warm up, they cranked the music on, and everybody went to work. I'm flying back on the Gator to try and get back over to the field house, and I get a picture of, our weight room full of high school football players, and they're cranking out a lower body workout that, I came in and I was like, guys, I'm not going to lie. This morning I wanted to punch so many of you. Metaphorically, I would never hit a child. But right now, this right here, this is the stuff, like, this is what makes us different. This is how we take those steps. And it may not seem like a big deal to some people that are listening, or, you come from a slightly different program, but for where we are and what our kids go through out here, it was a huge win for us. And it scored absolutely 0 points on any scoreboard. It made 0 statistical impact, but it made a huge impact of them kind of realizing their capabilities from a discipline and accountability standpoint. And like I said, I hate the word culture, but I felt like that was a step in the right direction for us.
Well, Travis, good news is points are scored from a winning process, and it sounds like it's a pretty winning process, so it's good.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I was freaking out, and when I walked into the weight room, I was like, "Okay, you're all lying. Like you splashed water in your face. You haven't done anything." They're like, "Coach, no, look, check your phone." And sure enough, I had a picture of from the corner up top. You know that classic Facebook picture. I'm just getting after it. So, meanwhile, you had a scrimmage yesterday. You had a little sub-varsity scrimmage yesterday.
Did
Got
we
any
had sub-varsity scrimmage?
got any notable plays, moments, or memories from it?
By the way, I hate calling it sub-varsity. Like,
I mean, what do you want me to call it?
it's JV.
Okay, well, yeah, JV scrimmage yesterday. My
Do y'all
bad.
call it sub-varsity?
We do, but that's because we played junior high and JV on the same night. So we just everything,
That makes sense. I mean, how about this? If you have 3 teams and you call it sub-varsity, you're a psychopath. How about that? It's JV.
Fair point.
All right.
Fair point.
It's JV freshman. All right. Anyways, yeah, we had a kid. Well, first off, we played a varsity team with our JV team, and but we played really good. We won. There was a kid who is brand new. He just enrolled. He's a really solid 5'4", 130, 120 pounds. You know, he'll probably be my financial advisor one day. I don't know. He'll be a CEO, Fortune 500, whatever. But great kid, one of the nicest kids ever. And he gets on the field, and they throw passes away. And he's one of those kids, just so you're aware. Like when he gets on the field, everybody's like, "Rudy," kind of like that happens. And so he's on the field, and everybody's like, "There we go!" And they throw they throw passes away. You know, we're all like, "Oh my god, here we go!" And dude, he like attaches to the hip, boom, swipe. I mean, I don't know if that was technique. Honestly, I'm lying, but like, whatever. He got in the way of the
fear
ball.
arms.
He got in the way of the ball and batted it down. And like, I almost, like, on a serious note, I almost cried because he makes the play and everybody's really, really, excited for him, and he is so joyful. And he starts running off the sideline, and he's running off towards me and the head coach. And it was like a movie because he goes, "Coach, I made a play. I really made a play." Dude, I almost like completely lost it. It was so sweet, and it's like you could tell like he knows his role and he knows his abilities. He's mature enough to see that, and he just wants an opportunity. And he just loves being part of the team. And when he made that play, it was like, this is why you do it. You know what I mean? Like this is why we as coaches do this stuff. So it's cool.
And just so you're aware, how you responded to that statement and to that moment, he will remember that just as much as the play. And I say that, which I know you, and I in those situations, I know you handled it appropriately, but I say that from firsthand experience. Because I don't remember what I don't remember.
But a guy, no.
No. Trust me. I don't remember which spring it was. It was either 2009 or 2010. We're in spring ball, and it's one of the inter squads. Like spring ball, we'd have like 3 or 4 inter squads, and it's not the spring game, but it's an inter squad, Saturday inter squad, yada yada, and like the 2s, we're finishing up the scrimmage. The 1s are done, we're finishing. It's like the last drive of the 2s, and I'm playing receiver, and my boy Nick Florence is playing quarterback, and they call a deep ball to the other side. So I backside route, like it's our Browse offense. I'm not giving anything away, but it's like, you guys know, like I don't have a lot of responsibility on the backside. So ball snap, I cover like 10, 12 yards, and I kind of peek, and I see Tricky Nick back there. He's scrambling. Well, to me, he's scrambling the concept, so I'm about to like shut it down, break across the field. Well, he pops out towards me closer, and it's just before I even get to do anything, like I'm starting to break down to get across the field, and he's already like mid motion. He's about to like NFL skills and drills competition. Let's see how far I can throw this. And he just heaves it in my general vicinity at the pylon. And I'm probably on like the 20. And so what little acceleration I had, I just start pumping my arms like I'm Nick Cannon in Drumline. And I take off running, and I'm tracking this ball, and parallel dive, catch it, like land in the end zone, slide. The ref comes running down, throws his arms up, and it's an inter squad. It's a scrimmage. It doesn't matter, but like it mattered to me, like you just said. Like in that moment, it mattered. And I was 20 years old. I was trying to figure out a way to weigh 190 pounds. I'm fighting tooth and nail every day. Like this was it. This was a good chance for me. And I make that play. They shut the scrimmage down. Philip Montgomery comes sprinting down the field. He's throwing his practice script in the air. Like it was, everybody's going nuts. It was awesome. They call it like that was it. Just practice is over. And so Coach Browse calls us up and he's talking. He's like, man, today was a great day. We saw a lot of great things. And he goes, T-Mac, it's like, what a play to end the scrimmage. What a catch. Now, is he going to get the opportunity to make that play on a Saturday night? Probably not. But we know he can. And I was like,
oh, dang it.
To the point where, like, I just started laughing, right? What else can you do? But it was to the point, like, Coach Browse is a heart of gold. I know exactly what he meant. Like, that's not something that we expect you to do, but now we know that you can just in case. That's what he meant, right? But that's not what he said. To the point where, like, it came off, a couple people chuckled, and my position coach called me over and was like, hey, you know how he – I was like, dude, we're good. I get it. There's a bunch of NFL guys in the same room that I'm in. Just happy to be there. So.
That's cool, though.